Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who is ready to take on conference travels, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to episode 337 of Sports Geek. In this episode, I catch up with Cricket Australia's Stephanie Beltrame. She's the EGM of Broadcast and Commercial to talk both of those things, broadcast, media rights, TV partners, how broadcast has changed in her long time at Cricket Australia, as well as what are the commercial realities and how do you maximise your assets. And Stephanie's been at Cricket Australia for a long time and seen a vast change in both the game and also the products that they're delivering to market. So if you love that space of media rights and commercial partnerships and sponsorships and how they all work together, I think you're really going to enjoy this episode with Stephanie. You can find every episode of Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com. Every episode is available there, but it's also available on your podcast platforms of choice, whether it be Apple, Google, Spotify, or, as you might know by now, my favourite, Pocket Casts. It is available on all platforms. If you could leave a review, I really would appreciate it. And if you just want to leave a review privately and send me a message, you can do that on socials at Sean Callanan or at SportsGeek, or send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I love hearing back from podcast listeners like yourself. Please enjoy this chat with Stephanie Beltrame, EGM of Broadcast and Commercial at Cricket Australia. Very happy to welcome Stephanie Beltrame. She's the EGM of Broadcast and Commercial at Cricket Australia. Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
No problems. Normally I ask people how they got their start in sport, and I love starting it that way. How did you get your start in the world of sport?
Well, look, I'm a passionate sports fan. I just love sport. And I actually started off at uni. I was doing an arts degree, and I realised how much I was missing sport. So I switched across to do a sports science, sports admin degree at Deakin Uni. And after completing that, I was sort of out in the real world trying to find a job, and it was quite difficult at the time. I had a lot of rejection letters, which I wish I'd have kept, would have been piled up very high. But I did see an ad in the paper, as it was back then, and it was for an admin assistant at the Australian Cricket Board. So I applied and was really very, very lucky, career life-changing experience really, to get a job working at the ACB. Malcolm Speed hired me along with a lady called Jane Walker. So I was sort of the assistant to the assistant, and that was my start. And I think it was one of the best starts I could have hoped for, learning from someone like Malcolm from the ground up.
So, so effectively you've been at, I guess it has even changed from the Australian Cricket Board to Cricket Australia, but you've been there now 23 years, starting as that assistant to an assistant. It sounds like a joke from The Office, but you're starting at the very low level. You've been lucky enough to sort of work your way in through different roles, early on in the comm space and then in media partnerships. Was that something, a conscious decision to sort of stretch yourself to learn different parts of the business, or was it something that was also more opportunistic, that there was a new role and you're looking to try new things?
Yeah, look, it was probably a little bit of both, to be honest, and I had always a great number of people supporting me and keen to develop me. So I had that grounding working in Malcolm's team where I could really see all parts of the business and how he was operating out of the CEO's office. And as I said, I was quite fortunate that there were people who took an interest in me and my development and moved me, into public affairs team with Brendan McClements for a while there. I even went across to the UK to do a secondment with the ICC, working in the clock tower at Lords, which was, again, another life-changing experience. And again, just, being very fortunate to have very good leaders in in the organisation that were prepared to invest in me. And I suppose I did want to work very hard. I take a lot of pride in working hard and being proactive and really keen. I mean, I was just so eager to learn and do everything that I could to develop myself. So yeah, probably a little bit of both. Good luck, great managers, and my own sort of personal desire to keep developing.
And so those early roles, in that comms advisor and comms manager, you were more like working with the executive, making sure the messaging that was going out right to the different partners and working on that thing. And then you found yourself moving into the media partnerships manager role. Was that something new? Was it something you sort of want to dive further into what media was for cricket and what those media partnerships sort of entailed?
Yeah, I think as well, when I first joined in 2000, it was quite a small organisation. So I've sort of been in a period where sports organisations have transitioned from being, perhaps a little bit more of, not amateur, but we started to really take in business people and bringing in outside knowledge and expertise into sport, and it becoming far more professional, competitive. So I sort of went through that era, and so there was a lot more growth and new roles were coming available. So yeah, there clearly was identified a need to work with our media partners because that became more and more important. So that's how I kind of, I guess, fell a little bit into that media space. Coming through the comms, I worked with the Australian women's cricket team. One of my roles was to be the media manager with the team. Very different environment back then, but that was again sort of dealing with media. So it just continued to build and build, and I always had that sort of passion and interest in that area. And I realised that as I was going through that, it became a very important part of the business in terms of being the commercial hub and the revenue. And I felt developing a career with a commercial background was going to be important for me, a business background. So I continued to work my way through that. I did have interest in, sports science, having done that at uni, and the high performance element, that still really interests me. But I felt to develop more of a well-rounded career that I would be better to maintain my work within, the commercial framework. So that has held me in really good stead to where I am today, for sure.
Terrific. I mean, again, yeah, from your time, you were going from a real stable environment from those media deals, and you're right, cricket wasn't, and a lot of sport wasn't amateur, but it was like we get our big check from TV, we execute what we need to execute. There wasn't the idea of our own media departments and our own content teams. So that shift, you sort of work through that shift in how the media deals have changed as the appetite for you've got your own cricket.com.au doing all of its content. So how has those relationships that you're building with your big media partners changed as effectively you're becoming a media channel in your own right?
Yes, it's really fascinating when you reflect back because you're right. When I sort of first took on that role, we had a single radio partner in ABC, and we had a single domestic partner in Nine Network that had been covering cricket for a very long period. The history of that is very well known. And, we did have overseas partners as well, because the way that cricket media rights works is each home country owns the matches that are played in that home country, and then you can sell those internationally. So for all the fans watching the Ashes at the moment on Nine, Nine has bought those rights from England because the matches are played there. So we did have international partners, but as the world continued to evolve and the sporting rights and media rights continued to be transformed, that has grown. So there's more partners, more product, more assets, different genders. We only had men's cricket televised when I first sort of came into the role, and that's something that we've really worked hard to change so that we have equal coverage of men's and women's cricket. So it's been both the expansion of the number of partners that we have. So we now have 3 radio partners at home, and we have our 2 host broadcasters in Seven and Fox. So, yeah, it's a very, very different world. But that's also been a product of the different formats and the expansion of cricket itself, how it's evolved over, the 20 years that I've been involved in the game.
And so what was it like you were going through the process of taking a new product? You talk about, a new product in things like the Big Bash, and, it's developed as a completely new product. So it's not part of those media rights. It becomes a new piece, but it's not anchored with, previous people watching it and knowing what it is and transforming it. How was it from a CA point of view and you from a media rights point of view to say, hey, this is what this new product is? And did it start making those relationships, I guess, more of a partnership, like you working with the broadcasters to develop the product as much as what you're putting out on the pitch?
Definitely. In the case of the BBL, and there were a number of people involved in that at the time, and who probably better placed to talk to some of these points than I am, but certainly my recollection involvement, T20 already existed, but it was state-based, so New South Wales versus Victoria, and I do remember we sat down with Fox Sports, who had the domestic rights at the time, and we sort of presented this new idea, this new colours, these new team names. Everything was completely dramatic, and I remember just sitting there and as it was being rolled out, thinking, what's the response going to be? And to their credit, they just embraced it wholeheartedly and really. So we actually, the rights were kind of already granted at the time, and so they took on a new competition. They helped rebrand it. They helped rebuild it, changed, a number of ways that it was presented. And, so they were sort of very much part of building that product from the ground up. And then it became, more valuable. And at one point in time, the rights sort of moved away from Fox and went across to 10, and then have subsequently come across to 7. So it's sort of evolved with the help of the broadcast partner, and you really have to do that in partnership. I think that's equally been visible in the UK, where the 100 has been a partnership between the ECB and Sky, because you need to be joined, you need to believe in it, you need to present it together. It was formed with the broadcaster, and then the rights obviously became a new product and a new value to cricket.
And the other piece is not just products, but now, we've all seen the success of Drive to Survive in F1, and now we're seeing this carve out of, what does documentary rights and documentary access look like? And cricket's had success with the Test, with Amazon. What's been the impact of having a series out in market like that? What does it deliver for CA than a traditional, hey, it's Tuesday night and you're watching the cricket, or, Saturday afternoon and you're watching a test? How is that a different product for CA, and how does it work for you?
Yeah, it's, there's certainly a lot of ways that you can carve up the rights. There's the live rights, there's the replays, there's the highlights, there's the clips, there's there's a long list of the way that the rights are actually defined. So, the live is always the most valuable, but we also feel that you can continue to create new rights, and the documentary being one of those. We're in the midst of covering the Ashes in the UK at the moment, so kind of creating our own content and then packaging it into a new product, a new offering. And I guess the reason we do it first and foremost is because we want to amplify cricket more, and we want to get more fans engaged and watching and passionate. I mean, that just goes straight to our mission and our vision for cricket to be a sport for all Australians. That makes us proud. So creating new products and then being able to sort of clearly define those as being within an agreement or sitting outside of an agreement allows you then to work out how to distribute them. The impact of the test has been absolutely phenomenal. The first 2 series, some of it is even difficult to measure. You can sort of see, and we don't necessarily get the detailed performance when it's not on our platform, but Amazon have said, it's one of the most popular shows that they've ever had on their platform, one of the most popular documentaries. But, just the way that they amplify and remember they've had, bus shelters decked out with, the test. They put their own marketing and leverage into it. And like Drive to Survive, what we're trying to do is reach a different audience too. And that just adds so much value. And I guess when we did the first one, and Richard Ostov in our team has really led the charge here. We were coming off the events, I guess, of Cape Town, and we had, we had to work together to really try to, rebuild the confidence of the Australian public in the team. And it was designed, to show them, present them in a different way, get behind the scenes. And, I think it really went a long way to helping us and helping the Australian public, to where we are today, when I think everyone got up this morning, couldn't be prouder of that team and what they've done. And I think that's part of, because we've created that opportunity to see them in a different way outside of, here's a live rights and you're just playing a match. It's really important. So that the tangible benefits are certainly there, but also the intangible that are hard to measure. It's sort of a little bit instinctive to say, well, it's had an impact.
Yeah, I think that dual purpose, because a lot of people, that initial brief of Drive to Survive was, hey, how do we reach new fans on this platform? And it brings in new fans and they start following the drivers. But I think the dual piece of the test was, yes, you want that halo effect of someone watching it because they've got Prime and they want to see something different and they've been following all these documentaries so they become new fans. But I think that other part of it was really welcoming to the current fans and the avids, and that wanted to lean in and learn more. And, in some instances, heal and be brought closer to the test team. And so I think it did a really good job of balancing those two pieces, which is it's a really tough brief to say, hey, talk to our avid fans, but also attract new fans. But really it just becomes, good storytelling and lifting up our heroes, which, goes counter to everything we've been doing in social of making everything shorter. Like if you can build something meaningful, like people will spend those 6 hours, learning the ins and outs and deciding, that's why I'm following, Steve Smith or Dave Warner or Usman Khawaja, because it's, something they said, because they get that personal connection.
Yes. And as you would know too, I mean, the sort of the flow on the notion of really engaging your fans more deeply means that they are more avid, more passionate, and then at some point, you do have to convert that into something.
Yep.
And, I think you're well familiar with how the deeper you are engaged on any platform or device, then, that's the opportunity then to try to convert that into, commercial. But we don't do it, just for money. But at the end of the day, it's a balance that we have to take, that, we want fans to be engaged, and that should really drive the commercial outcomes rather than being the other way around.
And did you have to go back into your comms advisor days to go, hey, we're going to sell this. We need extra access. We don't normally have the cameras in here. We don't normally have them in these meetings. What kind of support did you need, both from, higher up, but then also on the operations and the coaching side to be able to get that kind of project off the ground?
Yes, that's a great question. And I think just as a sport broadly, cricket has been pretty good at trying to provide that access, whether it's, miking up players on the ground, the innovations with, when we speak to players, when they've just come off the field, live on field. I mean, very few sports actually allow their athletes to be mic'd up and speak to a broadcaster in a live game. So I think broadly, cricket has been very good. There's still always room to improve. But we have for a very, very long time, and I think, the marketing team at CA and the comms teams as well have always been of the view that, we do need to see the characters, the stories, and that really hasn't changed over a long period of time. People crave storytelling, crave the interest in athletes beyond just the field. So that access point is really, really critical, and you need to work in partnership, because you don't want to be invasive. You need to be respectful and sensitive to what's happening. It's a high performance environment, and the team is trying to achieve their own outcomes, but they're also understanding that the Australian public adores them, wants to know more about them, and so they're carefully balancing that I think they've become, really, really supportive and collaborative with us on how to do that. Certainly, the coaching staff too are really key. Because that's the fascinating point too. What fans want to understand, what's the rationale behind why we're doing something? People are just fascinated with that. So we do have to strike a balance. But we and Richard, as I said, was the lead on that project. It's a very detailed, planned sort of program of work where we have to have the support. If you don't have the support, it just won't work. And not to say we get it right all the time, because maybe we'd like the camera on more, but we have to also have somebody there that's the camera operator, male or female, but has happened to be a male in the last few instances, has been a major part of the team and being trusted and respected to be in team meetings, or we can capture things that maybe later on down the track we won't actually make the final product. We've also, agreed with the team for the first couple that we would then destroy all that material so that what didn't make it on in the final cut is gone. And again, those are just things that we talk through with the team and the coaching staff, the support staff. So it's a team effort for sure.
And so in the media rights game, like in Australia, it's ever evolving. But then also it's similar trends in the US and Europe. So how do you look at other markets, take learnings from other sports, or how other markets are selling cricket? Like how do you balance that up to say, hey, there's what the NFL are doing, this is what the NBA is doing, here's how Premier League is selling? Are you trying to keep across, whether it's different carve-outs or different ways that they're doing it, to try to figure out what your next deal or your deal in 10 years' time, like trying to do that longer-term planning on what your rights look like?
Yes, it's a fascinating area. We do need to look at what other sports are doing, but also you have to consider almost market by market approach. Australia is a very, very unique sporting market. I think we have more free-to-air coverage of sport, and there's legislation in place with the anti-siphoning list that's designed to ensure that sporting events or leagues or what have you, matches, tournaments that are culturally valuable and important, remain on that list. So there's sort of the legislative framework that you work in. There's looking at the consideration of the market dynamics and the competition, and which broadcasters in that market might have a sports strategy, might have a subscription strategy, might have a cricket strategy, and sort of looking at what is the competitive dynamic in that particular market. So you sort of consider market by market, sporting strategy, cricket strategy, and also then what learnings can you take from other sports around the world in terms of how they might carve up their rights. And some of it is applicable and some of it isn't. The way that you can conduct market sort of processes as well can be quite different. So there isn't necessarily for us a one size fits all, and equally we're competing with other cricket boards to sell our rights into other markets as well. So there's a lot of nuance and layers there. But we certainly look at building out what's our program of content. We've just now agreed our future tour program, so we have line of sight for the next 8 years. What is the content we have? Who are we playing? What's the volume? Then we can sort of package that together and stagger our agreements so that not every single agreement is up for renewal at the same time. We try to sort of keep, but we're on a constant cycle to keep renewing our different agreements. Our goal is to make sure that no matter where a fan is in the world, they will be able to watch Australian cricket. We're working quite closely at the moment with the ICC, who are developing ICC TV, and I think that's a tremendous product and hopefully quite strategic for cricket fans long term, where there is sort of a single destination, because at the moment you could be, depending on what series or which country you're in, diverted to different places. And I think there is that opportunity, in certain countries that we can consolidate and work closely with the ICC to build out, a global proposition for certain territories. So, yeah, there's a lot of thinking and strategy that goes into it, for sure.
Well, I think it is. I mean, I think that like just looking at the domestic market and, looking at some of the stuff that was done recently in the NFL where they're looking at that cable cutter audience and the consumers have changed and, they were sort of with that place of do we continue to take some money from the cable or do we take a different deal because we want the different audience and that they're doing a game with Amazon, which is a pure streamer and it brings them, it's a real younger age demographic. Like it makes sense for their future growth, but they had to sacrifice that bigger check. Is that a balance, that you're playing in every single, media rights deal to go, the money, the audience, the reach and sort of trying to get that triangle right?
Yes, I think so. And again, you're market by market, but if you look at Australia, cricket is a national sport and, it is a product that, fortunately in Australia, we've always had very strong partnerships with our free-to-air broadcasters, and they're really important to get that mass audience. And what we're lucky to have at the moment, because I think as I mentioned at the start of our chat, when I first commenced, we only had one product, men's international cricket, and one broadcaster, and we didn't have devices where you could watch. That changed when we signed a partnership with Hutchison 3 Mobile, Vodafone, and I remember the phone when I was first watching. The screen was the size of a 20-cent piece, and it was 3G at the time. Now up to 5G. So screen sizes have changed, but that accessibility point's really important. So where we are today is a great balance of getting the reach piece through our free-to-air coverage with Seven Network, and now in our new agreement, they will also have digital rights on 7+. So there's more free-to-air coverage available for cricket fans, and free-to-air coverage of more cricket. So more coverage of more cricket, and we also have a fabulous relationship with Foxtel and KO, and the types of coverage too. Like fans have the option, which I think is incredible, to watch the match with two different types of coverage. So, it's probably a little bit more data and analytical and technical on Fox because they're probably certainly appealing to a different, sports fan. And I just think that's amazing for our fans. And so maintaining the mass consolidated audience to give them access, because we want cricket to be enjoyed. So we've got a good balance at the moment, I think, of those two measures of reach and revenue. And the facts are we are a not-for-profit organisation, so everything that we generate after cost goes back into the game, and we need that to continue to put bats and balls in the hands of kids. That's just fundamental to our operation. So there is a balance. Fortunately, we've been able to maintain that really well over a period of time. And look, who knows where the future's going to take us. But that's I think to date we've tried to balance those two factors as best we can.
And do you think you being in that dual role of having broadcast and commercial, like you don't have to, sometimes that's a split role and the broadcast person gets the best deal for broadcast and then they negotiate or argue or negotiate with the commercial folk. But you're looking at, hey, what can we do from a CA point of view with our partners? What kind of options will we have with this broadcast? And then, what can we do with our own with our own channels? Is that sort of also beneficial that you've got that remit and your commercial team is sort of feeding into, working best with your broadcast partners?
Yes, that's right, because you have to have that total picture. They can't work in isolation. Media rights as our commercial stream is the lion's share of our revenue. So, it is important that sets the foundation then for other commercial rights that can be activated, whether that is, as you say, whether it's through sponsorship or through ticketing or licensing, our relationships with our venue partners. So it all sort of stems from having the plank in place first with media rights, and making sure that we're then able to activate the other rights that complement and generate additional revenue. But the media rights is the lion's share, followed by our sponsorship. They're our two major income streams, and they have to work together because our partners want to activate through the broadcast or through streaming, and we want them to be successful. So yeah, it's really a hand-in-glove relationship, but you have to have an oversight to the total picture for sure.
And the effects of COVID commercially, have you seen, there was a lot of teams and leagues went in to make good territory with and found some really big successes in the digital space. But now, fans returning to stadiums, have you sort of seen both an uplift in digital where sponsors are saying, hey, we still want that was working really well, but then also that appetite to say, hey, I want to do stuff in stadium and store appearances and those kind of things, as the world has returned to relative normal?
Yeah, certainly it was very challenging on all levels. I'm not sure anybody's coming out saying it was easy to live through the 2 years of a pandemic, but I think there was hardships and there was collaboration and there was innovation and there was learning. And so I think we've certainly found instances where we've been able to do things better, or we've been able to do them more efficiently, or we've been able to achieve the same things in a different way and actually, go, oh, that's actually delivered a better result than I expected. We would have done things like, certainly our broadcasters did, remote production, which was really, they were forced to do that in some cases because we just couldn't get people to transverse state borderlines. But there was a lot of learnings, and I think, fortunately, we wanted to work with our partners. Where we weren't able to deliver like-for-like value, we worked to deliver it in a different way, and they were very accommodating. We sort of come through that period of time, and now we really feel like we've got a great platform to go forward. We've got our FTP, as I mentioned, so we know who's coming. We've got some bumper years with India coming for 5 tests, followed by an Ashes, and so I think we're starting to rebuild. And some of those learnings that we took, we can implement for sure moving forward. They're here to stay. Some things are here to stay, so I think that's good.
Yeah, and one thing I did want to sort of touch on, because one of the best memories, pre-COVID was women's cricket, the MCG. I think it was 86,000. I think it was there. How have partners embraced that growth of women's cricket? And is it a different, are they coming from different SKUs or different parts, wanting to get behind it, as well as your existing partners? How have your partners commercially embraced women's cricket?
Yeah, well, our long-standing partner, Commonwealth Bank, has probably been the supporter that's been there for a very long period of time, and I think really recognised the benefits early of partnering in the women's game. So we've seen that growth from both a domestic with the WBBL, and we brought on Weber barbecues in the last couple of years have come on board. A fantastic relationship there to support the growth of the WBBL, which is the 4th most watched league in Australia. That's delivering phenomenal audience results, and I think now we're entering a period of time where women generally, whether it's in the workplace or we've sort of coming from a further way back, and there needs to be a period of correction where we're putting in the same effort and the same investment, the same advertising, the same marketing, and the same to reward where the game has evolved. And we're certainly seeing a lot more interest from a number of partners to get involved in. I mean, the Australian international women's team is the most successful sporting team on the planet at the moment. And if you don't want to be a part of that, I couldn't understand why. They are tremendous individuals and hopefully going to bring us home the Ashes as well. So I think to answer your question, there's certainly been significant growth, and I think now we do need a period of time where, okay, we've demonstrated that there is audience there is the appetite, and we do need to sort of ensure that there's appropriate recognition from a commercial value sense for the women's game. And sorry, the other point would be just the explosion of the women's IPL in India. Again, that is an absolute game changer for women's sport, women's cricket, but certainly women's sport. And I think the impact of that is going to be very, very significant in a number of ways.
Yeah, definitely. It's very much a watch this space if you're not, following. The women's IPL. Yeah, you're right. It is something that's, really adjusting the sport. You've spoken about the programs coming up. We're recording this, the morning after Australia winning the first Ashes test in exciting fashion. What excites you about cricket going forward?
You're right. I did wake up very excited this morning. I'm a bit weary now. I might need a coffee hit. I woke up today after seeing the team. I think it was about 5 a.m. here when we got the when Cummins hit that 4, and after 23 years working in the game, I just felt such a sense of pride today. I just thought it was an unbelievable game. Credit to both teams. It was gripping till the end, but Pat and the Australian team were just outstanding. And I think, how could you feel anything but pride? The Women's World Cup final at the MCG, you mentioned, that was probably another moment where I go, that these moments don't happen all the time, but when they do happen, they're so powerful. And if I've heard today a phrase, it's I stayed up to watch the cricket last night. Well, that's all I've heard all day. I stayed up to watch the cricket, and it was just gripping. So it's a wonderful game to be a part of. And last week, we were just talking about the impact that a children's program like Bluey can have in reinforcing what cricket means to this country and how it's held, with such affection and such pride. And I think that's what it does to people. It makes us feel good.
I mean, I didn't even have Bluey playing cricket on the list. Was that something that was a nice coincidence? Was it something that was coordinated? Was it something that they asked, or was there any interaction from you?
Look, I think all credit to the producers and creators. I've watched every Bluey episode, as I have a couple of young children. So I have seen every Bluey episode, and they do cover some other sports and other messages, and I think it's a terrific show. But we didn't have a heavy involvement in that, which is sort of one of those things where you say, we're benefiting from something where we didn't really have a major impact. But I think the lessons and the I guess what we can do moving forward in executing and implementing some of those, or continuing to, I guess, reinforce what those messages were for fans and for children and for parents and anybody that's involved in the game. So, it was great. A bit of a bonus, I think.
I mean, again, my kids are definitely out of the Bluey age group, but anyone who has kids in that age group, and I've got a lot of American friends who have children that have Australian accents because of Bluey. So that's we've spoken about cricket for 37 minutes, and now their ears are pricked up and they've gone, oh, I know who Bluey is. So just the fact that the cultural significance of cricket makes it sensible for Bluey to be playing cricket. So and I think I saw a stack of memes with Bluey, being the main reason that we won the test this morning, and it will just continue to live on. I want to get to the Sports Geek closing 5. Stephanie, I really appreciate you coming on. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
I'm going to say, I think I have an older brother, and he played a lot of sport, so I was often going to his matches. But in terms of, I do recall being at an AFL game, and my family, unlike you and I, Sean, mad Collingwood fans. They are Hawthorn supporters. So I think it was probably at Princess Park, Hawthorn Carlton, I'm going to say. I think I was standing on a milk crate.
That sounds terrible. But hopefully you went to a couple of games at Vic Park.
I don't remember the result. No,
Yeah.
I thought, I did. I did end up going to Victoria Park, so I saw sense.
There could be a strange crossover because we've probably been to many conferences, but one of my first jobs at uni, I was a ticket seller at Princess Park. Back when you would walk in and it was $12.20 to get in and $1.40 or $1.20 for a child, and I had to do all the sums. So who knows? I might have sold you a ticket.
You might have sold me you might have.
Do you have it? You would have been a lot of sports events, a lot of cricketing events over your time. Do you have a favourite food memory or a go-to food when you're at a sports event?
Oh, I enjoy being in the crowd and. Could be hot chips or it could be a hot jam donut on the way out after we've won.
Yeah, terrific.
Hot jam donut. Yep.
What's the first app you open in the morning?
I was on the Cricket Australia app very early this morning, but
maybe in a non Ashes time.
Yeah.
But what's your app you open in the morning?
The first one I would probably open would be either text or WhatsApp.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Is there someone that you follow online or maybe an author you read that you would suggest that the podcast listeners should follow and check out?
Look, I'm always very interested in Bernard Salt, the demographer, because I find not so much necessarily in the sport context, but I find for reflections on culture, trends, behaviours, consumption. I find his reflections very, very interesting. So I probably would call that out. Yeah.
So for those who don't know him, is a well-known, I guess, demographer, and sort of looking at how audiences have moved and consumption habits have changed, and looking at deep data of audiences probably before people had data mining and those kind of things. So yeah, he's always been looking at that sort of how the Australian landscape, audience is moving. And then the last one, I asked, what social media platform is your MVP? So what's your go-to social media platform?
I'm probably going to say WhatsApp. I know I did say that as one that I open, but I find it very good for both business and personal kind of streams, and simple, practical, functional. I think it's sort of made a difference in the way that you can interact and the way you can work. So I think it's probably not the most exciting, but I feel like it's practical. Yeah.
In an international role like yours, when you've got to be speaking to people, in Europe and in India and those kind of, and in different parts of the world, sending text don't make sense. The group functionality. And then, you do find yourself then in a group that's, I'm in a group that talks about Collingwood all the time, and I'm in a group with my family. And so it does become that same sort of space. So,
well, I'm happy to join a WhatsApp Collingwood group with you, Sean.
Oh well, I'll send you the requirements of what you need to do to enter, but that's more than happy to. Stephanie, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I always ask people who listen to the podcast, who like it and enjoy it, to reach out to the guests and say thanks. What is the best platform for them to reach out and say, hey, I listened to the podcast, I really enjoyed it?
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I guess you could probably easily find me on LinkedIn. So happy to connect with your audience.
There you go. So appreciate it. Normally I'd say all the best for next season, but we're in the middle of an Ashes campaign. So hopefully by the time this is published, we've got a few more test wins in the bank. Really do appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we'll cross paths soon.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sean.
Learn from the Sports Geek Amplify Season 2 cohort. Trajectory, Xtonet, SeatGeek, Sponsor CX, and Stats Perform. For more, go to sportsgeekamplify.com.
Thanks again to Stephanie Beltrame. As mentioned there, I really do appreciate if you reach out to Stephanie and all podcast guests to say thanks. There'll be links in the show notes, sportsgeekhq.com/337, but I always promote every episode on my LinkedIn feed. So if you want to connect with Stephanie, please do so. Please do so there. I really did love the discussion, especially the idea of the changing media rights. From those early days of being a couple of big TV partners, and that's where all the dollars coming from, to now that these audiences are splintering, but then also the behaviours of the audiences are splintering. So it really is changing the mix of the media rights. And as Stephanie sort of pointed out, the different carve-outs and the way that deals are being done, but also it is changing the way that we are now both engaging the fans that are our core fans, but then also how do we attract new fans, because fans are consuming content very differently than they did 15 years ago, but even 5 years ago. Like the studies that are being shown of the younger generation consuming their sport via YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, and not watching a full game. How do we engage that audience? But then also, how do we use that content to bring them into the full game broadcast, or what does that look like? So I think it's super interesting. It's a challenge faced by not only cricket but every sport and every rights holder out there, and also the media players trying to figure out how to reach those audiences. I think there's now a dual responsibility between with the sports and their own digital media departments growing their audiences that then pushes people to a traditional broadcast model. So there's plenty of exciting things in front of us. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how all of these platforms evolve, but also how the business models around the business and the consumption of sport change. If you're listening to this and you're on your way to see Salt Lake City, I'm looking forward to seeing you there. I'll be on the road, or I'll be in the air most likely when you are listening to this. If you haven't listened to the Sports Geek Amplify series that we've done in collaboration with Seeds, I highly recommend that as a way to get through your travels to Salt Lake City. Really enjoyed my conversations with Trajectory, Externet, SeatGeek, Sponsor CX, and Stats Perform, and I'm looking forward to catching up with all those guests at Seat. So if you've listened to this, tell me that you've listened to it. Anyone who tells me that they've listened to this particular piece and says, "Hey Sean, I know you mentioned the word pineapple. If you come up to me and tell me pineapple, I will definitely buy you a beer." So there you go, a little bit of Easter egg. If you've listened to a podcast just before Seat turns up, but you also know if you come up to me and ask me to buy you a beer, I most likely will do it anyway. So hopefully we'll see you at Seat, and if not, maybe in DC or New York City afterwards. Until next time, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Looking to help your digital or sponsorship team? Book in for a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan to help your team level up. Book now at sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain. Do you get Sports Geek news? Sean Callanan analyzes the latest sports business articles for you weekly. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com.